Well, hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2022, which I will say certainly has a bit of a different feel to me in a variety of ways. Even outside of finance, just feels like a lot of new beginnings and so forth. And of course, certainly I think will be an exciting year in the silver market and off to quite a wild start. So let me pull up the silver chart. By the way, I might say it's also quite nice to be live with you again. I've left Puerto Vallarta, where internet reliability is a sparse commodity that is perhaps somewhat in demand. Although moved a little farther up north, and it's great to have a nice working internet connection. I really miss doing the live videos, which are a lot of fun. So we'll take some questions today as well. Shortly before the market opens, none of this is legal financial advice. I'm just wandering around Mexico, but I may have learned a thing or two on my journey throughout the silver world. And interesting, as I was watching the price get hammered, it was down. I saw as much as 60 cents today. So it was 2.5% at one point. Although while that was happening this morning, I was actually out listening to one of those Jack Schwager Market Wizards book. This was the New Market Wizards, and he was talking with one of the options guys. And it's amazing how many of these great traders that silver pops up in the conversation. And so a lot of silvery thoughts, especially because I imagine people are wondering, why is the silver price down 60 cents when we see people riding around the world in response to having their freedoms attempted to be taken away? I don't think it's working very well. And part of that response is the hyperinflation campaign out of the Federal Reserve. And we'll just cut to that chart right now. Because for all those people back when gold and silver were at all-time highs in 2011, and then the excuse sold by the mainstream media and Federal Reserve was, oh, well, the Fed's tightening, they're going to undo the balance sheet. They certainly talked about it a lot. Never exactly happened. Now it's shot over $8 trillion. Wow, not just by a little bit either. Goodness, look how quick this is picked up. Just look at 8.6 December 1st, now 8.8. I mean, this is just since October 4th. Let's back out the 6 month. You get the point. This stuff is accelerating quickly. So 6 months, you went from about 8.1 to 8.8 trillion. Yet in hyperinflationary times, as we have seen throughout thousands of years of history, once people wise up to the tricks that government officials like Ross Benham are playing, again, Ross Benham, the man who head of the CFTC, confirmed that the price was tamped down. Now let's keep in mind he did not act alone, because he is part of the working group on capital markets. That was the institution formed by Reagan, really George Bush, the CIA director, whose descendant roots go back to the Brown Brothers Harriman Institution, which was actually financing a lot of the Nazi activity. A lot of ties there. Then Operation Paperclip brought that back home. And we'll leave all that aside, although you'll be hearing more about that this year. I can assure you of that. In the end, you have all these guys, and then you have them create the working group on financial markets, which basically was in response to the housing bubble crash of 1987. And they didn't like the fact that their bubble popped. So they said, what if we create a bunch of fraudulent positions so they can prop this up and intervene in the markets? Well known throughout Wall Street, more commonly known as the plunge protection team. Very highly anti, complete contrast to everything that America stands for, of freedom, especially the financial portion of free markets, which we have seen suspended because of activity and it like that. And so whether it's Ross or JP Morgan or Jeff Curry hammering, maybe Jeff Curry got a big order for SLV shares. And even though the prospectus explicitly prohibits them from doing any COMEX trading, especially since they're just buying the metal, putting it in a pile, he did confirm last year that he hedges fraudulently, illegally on the COMEX in those interviews where he committed multiple market felonies. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the main context of why silver is down 60% today in the midst of a hyperinflation campaign, but also history being made. We'll see what inning we're in. But on the COMEX, where as our brilliant technical silver analyst and all-around genius Rafi Farber, the author of each week's Rafi Farber's weekly silver report on the Arcadia Silver Network, pointed out here, another nearly 7 million ounces out of COMEX silver registry to end the year, and at 17 million ounces. December 2021 is the largest silver drain from the COMEX since 1997. And so let's dig in a little further here. Silver drain continues, biggest monthly drain since 1997. And by the way, just going to check over here, make sure we're coming through. All right, welcome everybody in the chat. Oh, 380 people watching live. How exciting. I think it's going to be an exciting year for silver, so welcome on in, everybody. And now I got sure everything is queued up. It's been a while since the live ones, but let's dig in here. Guys, another 6.8 million ounces of silver off the registries to end 2021. That's 11 million ounces in the last 2 trading days. We're down to 82 million ounces on the registry left. That's 16,448 contracts worth. And to put that in context, the monthly record was from July 2020 of 17,000. So not to say that next month is going to be 17,000, but that's a big chunk. Deliveries pick up next year, and I think they will. Then there could develop another emergency situation of JP Morgan moving millions of ounces for sale to back their shorts. That's what happened in July 2020 as silver was spiking to $30. On a quick side note, there are a few comments that popped in my head as I read that last sentence of JP Morgan and the things that happened in July of 2020 that unfortunately I'm not at liberty to discuss, although fortunately there's plenty that we can discuss. But I promise you the day, it might not be too much longer, when a lot of these things shake out and certain things are changed, I'll have some secrets to share one day. But we must respect the timeline of these things and so forth. So anyway, you see here registered silver stocks, and since I actually still have to look it up every time, remind myself, registered versus eligible, not the clearest names they could have chosen, but here we have on Silver Doctors, what is the difference and implications of registered vaults and eligible? Eligible category means that silver meets the exchange requirements. And there's Nibbles in the background. Hi, Nibbles. What do you think about silver today, buddy? And also exchange requirements include purity silver, the bars. Eligible silver essentially means the silver that's of, I guess, proved quality, stored in COMEX warehouse, conforms to exchange standards, is being stored in a warehouse for a private party, but is not available for delivery to contracts. So that's the key part there. For example, Warren Buffett decides to store 30 million ounces of silver owned by Berkshire Hathaway. He has no intention of making the silver available for sale at current prices. Although I wonder what could change Warren's mind about that. That's one of my learning lessons of 2021, where, if you have a good intention, everybody wants something. And if you find what they want and help them get it, it's a good way to make friends. And also I learned in 2021 from studying Ross Benham and the highly corrupt felons at the CFTC who suckle to the teat of hashtag Jeff Curry AF, Goldman Sachs, and their buddies over at JP Morgan, who actually vote on their market policy along with the CCP. It's all on the channel. That's why you hit the subscribe button and notification bell. You would know we've covered all those topics. I'm not going to dig into them all today. But I found that once I caught him that video confirming that he rigged the market, and then you expose it not only to the investors, but also the executives of the silver mining companies that I'm fortunate to, in many cases, already know. I mean, we've had Keith Neumeyer on the show, Phil Baker, a lot of companies have had billions of dollars stolen. And at least Ross stopped talking after I made that information public. He hasn't talked to Peep about silver. Now, maybe it's a coincidence and he has no idea who I am because the CFTC isn't too responsive yet. On the other hand, I did submit the evidence of the entire crime through their own TPS whistleblower format. So as you can see, there's a lot at play, who knows what. But the takeaway is that I found that even with a good intention, when you see a crime that really affects a lot of people in action, and perhaps you want to influence the behavior of one of the criminals, at least he doesn't seem to talk about silver anymore. I don't know if there's a connection. Now, I wonder if there's any information out there, and I'm not saying I would do this, but just Warren Buffett does pop up quite a bit in silver. In fact, you can, on the channel, we have him talking about silver, which he has twice purchased in large chunks. And one of the times, as was detailed in the big silver short, second time, many believe that he was coerced out of taking a lot of silver by certain forces that get involved in the silver world, which we document, like Ross Benham. So his mind has changed before. Anyway, we'll leave Warren aside, but let's say, for example, he decides to store 30 million ounces of silver owned by Berkshire Hathaway in a COMEX vault rather than his Omaha basement. He could do so, and the silver would be ineligible. So there's eligible, with a little tangent in the middle. Now, registered silver means that silver is fully available for delivery to longs who stand for bullion delivery. Registered silver used to have a paper warrant, but these are being phased out, as I think Rafi and our group found out. We still haven't gotten our one contract, if anyone's wondering. To simplify, registered silver is deliverable or available for delivery to long or demanding bullion delivery. So really what's available against delivery. I guess I could have said more concisely. And here you can see that registered stockpile about 114-ish, let's say here, back in August. And then what I find interesting, you're seeing it come out, but in the last 2 days, this is the last 2 days, that's at the 11 million ounces in the last 2 days that came out. Now, certainly, hey, there's tax loss selling, a lot of things that happen at the end of the year, and that it is certainly possible that it could be some factor like that, where it's just, hey, to close the books at the end of the year. When it's mixed with reports of silver dealers, I haven't had many on the show lately, although I've been hearing reports. I did talk with Andy Scheckman last week. He's consistent, him and others, that products are now, and especially has picked up in the last couple of weeks, becoming harder to get, less availability. So, we're also deep into this saga where now when the price gets crashed, in fact, geez, I got to wrap up soon. Well, the market didn't open yet. See, this is what often happens. I almost timed the video a little early so I could get some more call option purchases in there, because really, if they're going to do this and you outgame them on the stop busting, which Deutsche Bank actually called it one of those court records. That's another thing I've been working on in my spare time, is accepting what is and just planning around that, using it to my advantage, redirecting the chi. Some Eastern might say. I don't know if Ross Benham and his CCP buddies are looking at it quite like that. But anyway, I just think it's interesting because here, if you take the chart back a year and look at registered, this is Nick Laird's Gold Charts R Us. Go sign up. A lot of great silver data in there. And Nick Laird, great guy. Got to know him over the last couple of years. Here you see back in February, you're at 152-ish. Let's even go back 2 years, see what that looks. So quite an interesting chart. Here's, fantastic. So here's July of 2020. If deliveries pick up, let's review back what Rafi said. If deliveries pick up next year, and I think they will, then there could develop another emergency situation of JP Morgan moving millions of ounces for sale to back their shorts. That's what happened in July of 2020 as silver was spiking to 30. And I have some follow-up I can do on that one. So you see here it shoots up, and in fact, Andrew McGuire was on the show right when that happened. That would be a good one if anyone wants to review what was going on there. I believe this is also, yep, that's right before the price shot up to $29 there. So these things aren't, I know some people are, there's the critics out there, oh, he said silver was going to go up last year and it didn't. Well, actually it did in February for what it's worth until they rigged it lower. But these are the things that, you can sit, if you don't want to know the details beneath the surface, then you don't have to, but these are the things that I study and what helped me to figure out a lot of the other things. And so anyway, you have that big jump up there, and then right ever since February, look at the timing on that one. I'm sure Ross will, not sure that Ross will mention that if he ever gives the public information of his silver investigation, which ironically started on February 1st. Then February 2nd, on the biggest day of inflows, and we can actually show you that as well. It's pretty special. In the history of silver trading, the price falls 10%. So check this out. Let's look at the 20-year. So this is all the silver ETFs, which really didn't start. Here's where SLV started back in 2006. This is showing how much metal is added or taken out. Blue line also showing that. This spike here, which is about 3 times bigger than anything else you see there, that's silver squeeze weekend. In fact, you see also this other line. So there's 2 of them. We can get you the 1-year chart so you can see that. All 3 of these. So here's 20. Let's go back. So you see historically, you had like 3 times in the history of silver trusts as a concept where you had about 20 million ounces added. And one was the seeding of SLV. Then last year, there was a couple of like a week or 2 weeks before silver squeeze, and then you had the 34, the 20, and the 60, which I said was impossible to have occurred. I now know why some of these things happen. We can't get into that today. You can go back to the coverage we did last February where we explained why, and I called everyone outside of Santa Claus. I remember talking specifically with David Morgan, Rob Keens, and a whole bunch of others, but definitely David Morgan, Rob Keens, and none of us thought it was even possible. So there's that. And so you had this. Now, again, here's the timeline. February 1st, Ross Benham says he's investigating silver fraud and manipulation, threatens people on social media. February 2nd, Jeff Curry goes and lies on Bloomberg. February 2nd, also, when the price of silver falls 10%, while you had the greatest, these are the greatest inflows. This is according to the bank's own data. The history of silver trust, the most silver that was ever added. It wasn't, you could say in a 1-day period, except it did it 4 times within 2 weeks, which is what necessitated Ross Benham to tamp down the price. Ross Benham, the acting chairman of the CFTC, who is a member of the plunge protection team. I think it's him, Janet Yellen, maybe the president. I'd have to look it up, but I did confirm the CFTC is one of those 6 members. So when you hear like, 10 years ago when things would often they'd be intervening in the yen because there was this big carry trade on Wall Street, or what was it? They would borrow in one bond to basically short one, buy the other was a pair trade, and was, because if you borrow at 1% and lend at 3% and you just amplify that up with leverage, you can make a lot of money. And when it unravels, you have these guys who are taking an oath to represent the good of the country, yet just screwing everyone. So again, February 2nd, price falls 10% on the greatest day of inflows in silver in history. So now we have that context clear. Let's take a look back here where quite an interesting 2-year period. Whatever happened here in the emergency situation where JP Morgan, I think they also switched about 30 million ounces from eligible to registered, or possibly the other way around. Oh, no, actually, we know exactly. They added them to registered. So basically, they added them to registered right before this price shot up. Then here, after the greatest crime. I call it Silver Tuesday, and we'll have a book coming up about that. I was thinking it could be cool to have a book called Silver Tuesday, inside the greatest crime in the history of the silver market, given 1980, and really all the implications, not just for silver, but for people's lives who have been working 3 jobs to fight off this inflation with people. Now we know this isn't a bunch of confused Keynesians. These are people that have run and campaigned on an oath to help you. And they take your money and intentionally steal the money and make life as hard as possible. It's not unconnected to the virus situation going around the world now. And I can assure you, you will see that more overtly this year. In fact, we'll have a video coming up about some of the other connections of why the silver manipulation may have occurred. And some of the people who are getting caught now, which I'm about 90, I personally believe 99.99%. A few things I want to document, but soon it will be even easier to document clearly some of the specific people involved, some of the reasons why this has happened, why gold and silver went missing on September 11th, why that particular date. For some of you are familiar with the Black Eagle Trust Fund, which does not pop up in the most favorable historical context. Bixby talks about that book, Gold Warriors by Peggy and Sterling Seagrave, which I did read, and details how a lot of World War II, there was a lot of raiding going on. A lot of gold and silver went missing. Again, the Bush family appears there. Some are familiar with the name George Scherf, who many believe was, it's either Prescott Bush or I believe it was Prescott Bush or George Bush Sr., one of the two, but appears interlinked with Tesla, which comes back with technology that some feel was connected with September 11th, the day when a lot of gold and silver went missing, which I'm excited to research more into some of that. I was looking at it over the weekend, especially as someone who was running from the dust cloud that day. It's interesting with some of the things that I've seen, yet I'm still confirming, which is why I'm not being more specific, but all of a sudden it's starting a lot of things to make sense, which are quite wild, yet I think with a indicating we're kind of, if I know this thing, some of these things, and especially if I can confirm them, if I know it, it makes you wonder who else knows it. And there are other people that know a lot more than me and get access to a lot of other things. So either case, you see here, February, the thing falls off a cliff. And then the last 2 days. Now, if this were 1998 or something and I didn't know more about silver, I'd say, hey, I guess, here you had it fall off a cliff and wasn't the end of the world. Here you had it fall off a cliff. Pile's getting smaller. Let's see the 10-year. I mean, again, there's a lot of things that go on. So it's still, as opposed to 2012, still bigger. But again, one of the other charts we have here is something I thought was interesting, is that if you look at let's go back here. If you look over the last 4 weeks, we see 10 million, almost 11 million ounces out of COMEX, which really was last 2 days of the year. Also 12, almost 13 million removed from SLV. Now this thing, SIVR. Oh, that was that other one that got caught. That was the one in the prospectus that after Silver Squeeze weekend, they actually put legal language in there confirming that there were large short positions in the banks. Look up that Ronan Manley article. Find that one we talked about on the show. So there's 5 million ounces coming out. 15 total. And actually, to be more clear, this did not leave the building, because you see, yes, eligible went up. So anyway, I just want to point out some of this data. I'm not sure exactly what it means, but just in the end, you see that metal's coming out, and red line I drew on this registered monthly chart. This is Rafi. You'll see is not breached going back to 222. It may be getting serious on the COMEX again. So, I mean, again, there's some degree to which everybody, I'm looking at all these data points. We don't have full information, and there's perhaps what I can prove factually, and then my gut feel. You're going to have to decide that for yourselves as well. But at least I can. The way I really looked at the channel is that it's kind of like I'm taking notes of what I'm looking at, phrasing that in the best way possible, and but in terms of use a futures style scale of 0 to 100 of how close do you think something is to happening in percentage terms, well, it's 50% or 75%. Certainly things like this increase that mark on the scale for me. A few other things Rafi pointed out here. Reverse repo blowout. What happens when there really is a taper? Does not sound like that situation's going well. He sends a kind thank you to everyone. So you have, it's not just one factor that determines this. You have all these things at play together. And fortunately, the idea that the US is going to print money until this thing blows up, the underlying heart of it, that doesn't change. So if you have an ounce of silver and some time on a couple weeks, days, or maybe years on your hands, none of that has changed. Although if you're wondering when something might happen, this is why we look through these things. Also, Rafa reporting another Chinese domino down. Yango is next domino down in the Chinese real estate market. I don't know how many of these have to fall to trigger a collapsing panic, but still they keep falling. Yango has been about 50 billion worth in liabilities. Parent has become the latest victim of the crackdown on the indebted property sector, defaulting on a dollar bond payment. And I might add, you also have LIBOR ending, SOFR. Ross would know more about what that, or actually Rafi knows more than Ross, so we'll take his. Most important difference is LIBOR was manually controlled, basically sheets of paper with numbers. That's really all it was. SOFR is more of a mechanistic rate. And I've heard the bankers complaining about it a lot. And I'm sure there's maybe George Gammon might be more well-versed yet. I guess intuitively, it just feels a lot like some sort of systemic changes are happening. Perhaps related to the Basel III and which day that actually finally affects the gold and silver market. But it sure feels like the dike is bursting. Benham's got all 10 of his fingers in there, and he's hoping backup shows up soon. Except I think the people that he's counting on for backup are more likely to get arrested than be able to help. I will put more evidence on that as I can confirm it, but that's just what I personally believe. And I'm not sure. And I would encourage you to, if you find that shocking or interesting, go do your own searching and see what you find. But anyway, along with the changes at the LBMA at the end of the year, LIBOR, so platinum has an active contract going. They did not set a new record in platinum, but either case, a lot happening that I think is all related to silver. Here's the Fed's balance sheet. Let's see how far this goes back. I don't know why they can't publish their data before 2008. I mean, if there's any company that has no excuse for, oh, we didn't have enough budget or people, give me a break. Federal Reserve. So, oh, and here's another interesting one. Let's put this up here. This is the COT. Try and move my face out of the way there. I'll hide myself for a second so you can see the chart here. So your red line down here, that's the commercial category. And you can see it got down here. If you look in the box over on the yellow, I can't put my mouse there, but If you look, C, the one with a C in parentheses, about halfway through, COTLC, parentheses C for commercial, negative 66,000 contracts. That's been coming down over the last, down to 36. So really, here's the 6 month going back to the Basel III date at the end of June. Let's see. So they blew it. Well, it's interesting. It came in following June, then they blew it out back again to 66 million or 66,000. But as you can see there, cut that up almost in half. So at least the short position by the banks, as detailed in the COT chart, coming down. And anyway, so we're about wrapped up. Let's see, we silver down 40 cents here still. And as I get ready, I'll check if we have any questions before we wrap up. If everyone wants to throw in a question, obviously there's a lot of stuff happening and things that are unconfirmed. Although before we wrap up, would like to mention that today's video was sponsored by Arcana, a silver company that actually, in terms of stock price, hit a bit of a challenging time. And I wanted to mention, because we did have a reader who is a Arcana investor, and Arcana did have to raise capital again, do a refinancing. And he sent me a message. In fact, I'm a shareholder for a long time, first time with old management. I lost a large percent of my investment. I had more confidence in the new management. My question is, why do you keep issuing shares with warrant and therefore diluting the capital of existing shareholders? I read and heard interviews with Mr. Drover. That's Kevin Drover, who runs Arcana, who's been on the show. So by any means, if anyone has questions about Arcana for Kevin or well, the best way to get them answered, go in the description field of these videos. That's why there's always the link, or go to the contact tab on their site where Gary Lindsay's contact information is. If you don't get a response, then please contact me and I will make sure that you get one, because that is one of the requirements for any company that appears on here. I hold to. So anyway, I read and heard interviews with Mr. Drover where he keeps assuring us you are fully funding and cash flow positive by end of September. And he asked for an update. And real quick, I'll read back the response. Thanks for reaching out. I completely understand what you're saying, as I had a lot of money in the first round of Arcana also. And now with the recent rock slide and stock price drop, I am down as well. We are still mining and milling. Milling is operating just fine. However, due to the mining cut in half, we are only milling half time. Let me give you a scenario so you can see where the funds went when we thought we would not need additional funding. We really thought we would begin processing ore in July and be in full production in September. It took 2 extra rounds of outside contractor expenses to get the pan feeder set under the rock crushers, partly because it is in a tunnel in the mountains. And with that delay, it triggered a slowdown in a few other items on the schedule for building the mill and ultimately cost us an extra $10 million in outsider contractor expenses. Then, because the milling was delayed, we ended up missing at least $3 million each month in planned revenue from September through November. So that's at least another $9 million of delayed revenues. All costs for operating the mines are $3 million per month. So we continue to spend that money without revenue. In October, we wanted to get a loan instead of raising equity. So we could not secure, so we had to raise equity to keep financing. Once this mine is up and rolling at full capacity, it will produce a lot of profit. And it has been challenging to get it ramped up and into production. The rock slide was just one additional thing that creates a slowdown to get to full capacity. This part, he just mentions that 2 of the people, the board members, own large shares. They don't want to dilute themselves either. But this was what, in the end, they felt was necessary to continue. Let me pop my head back up. Moving the project forward. So I wanted to share that primarily so that you understand what happened. If we have, I'm sure we have some Arcana investors watching today. B, so that at least, if nothing else, you're hearing that when something happens, you can get answers. Unlike my feelings of Ross Benham or the CFTC or any of the bullion banking folks. C, also to point out that yes, and mining, things are going to happen unexpected. You know, there's companies that have situations with governments or things that don't go as planned. Now, what I guess the way I look at it, and certainly I think my expertise, I like to think, is more in silver than the mining stocks. I'm learning that. But if you maybe a general overview, hey, a lot of the companies that Nibble, come here, buddy. Come here. Nibbles is excited. New visitor in today's hotel. You know, a lot of the companies that went into business, certainly when silver was $50 back in 2011, they've been clobbered since then. And it forced the ones that are still surviving to become a lot more efficient so that even when something, in this case with Arcana, does not go as planned, yes, there's going to be times where, you know, your investment is going to be down, as was the case for this situation. Now, part of why I feel comfortable recommending a company or putting money into a company like that, the way I look at it anyways, which is not how necessarily you should look at it or financial advice, but just sharing my thought process. To me, as long as I trust the people running it know what they're doing, which is why I bring them on the show, which is why I talk to all these guys before I ever bring anyone on the show, it goes back to the silver price and the conditions affecting the silver price where, yeah, I mean, right now they're down. Right now, First Majestic, they got hammered because they withheld metal. But if the silver price does rise, okay, Arcana, they didn't get as much metal out of the ground to sell it. But if it's still there and there's still competent management, which I certainly believe they are, same with First Majestic, same with Endeavor. And in fact, one of the things I hear most often from shareholders is why don't they withhold metal from the COMEX so these guys can't continue their fraud, and then the price rises. So obviously, you know, it's not ideal, some of the conditions that happened here, yet it is interesting. One effect you have is some more metal did not get sold and has at least some probability that it will be sold at a higher price. So now, if you had this happen and you tried to find out what happened and I wouldn't give you an answer or Arcana wouldn't respond, and then you just get no answer and no explanation, that's a bigger red flag to me based on my 20-year financial career, because you had companies like Enron or JP Morgan or SLV where there's big problems, but everyone's concealing it. And that was one of the things I was listening in that trader book this morning, where the guy who was really successful and was being interviewed, he said, you know, I can handle someone who makes a mistake, but is honest, and then we can fix it. Things are intentionally concealed, like you've seen with silver plenty. That becomes harder. So by all means, any of these companies I bring on, I have done research to make sure that I would feel comfortable. And I've run it by analysts like Kranzler or Chris Marchese, who know these stocks in the mining business specifically a lot more thoroughly than I do and feel comfortable. And also, I want you to be able to see the people running it so that you can decide. Again, go back and listen to the interviews with Kevin. You can rewind this part, listen back to the letter that Gary from the IR wrote. And you know, at the end of the day, though, I mean, if we do have $50 silver this year, Nibble, come here, buddy. Nibble, right here. Nibble sees another dog. That's all right, boy. I know, puppy. You just want to go get some silver. It's in Mexico, just wants to hunt for silver all day, and we are doing this live. So, again, if you have $50 silver, though, all of a sudden the fact that things were delayed, no one's going to care about that. Now, I understand some people are willing to bet that. And and the whole bet doesn't need to be predicated on just that, but just pointing out that's how I look at it. Where if I have a portfolio with 10 companies or 20 companies where I feel good with the management. I've done the homework that's required for me. And again, this is why I don't give licensed financial recommendations. But I do what in my trading, what is appropriate for me. I think if you have 10 or 20 stocks and the silver price moves, you're going to be stunned by what happens. I can't guarantee that, but that is my belief. And I've made this channel detailing all of the reasons why. So anyway, a note there about Arcana, and perhaps does anybody have a question in the chat room before we wrap up here? Al Kearney says Nibbles needs friends too. Well, he's been making lots of friends here in Mexico with the people and the humans. I've actually been training him to sniff and hear the sound of silver. So maybe one day we'll have Arcadia Silver, our own mining company, and we'll just talk with the locals. And maybe that would be one good note to end on, really, the idea that with what you know, let's say you don't have a lot of cash or silver right now, and that's fine. But you have this knowledge and you came down to Mexico, just treated people well, ate great food that tastes great, less Monsanto, being healthy, sitting by the beach. You know, when you go out, you have a margarita, just get to know people and talk silver. It's kind of cool because we're in that phase where, you know, you don't have to start a company, but maybe you go out and pan for silver somewhere or get a couple friends and stake a claim. In fact, one nice development, Josh Lown. We have a new sponsor. We are sponsoring Josh Lown, similar to Rafi. And Josh is going to be a good friend of mine. You'll be seeing soon. He's going to be teaching us how to pan for silver. Maybe we can make that a Sunday feature, and every week Josh could put something together. So, you know, if you want to go outside and find silver on your own, lots of fun things. And I think especially with the excitement you'll see at some point, I think sooner than later with the silver price, you know, that's something personally I'll be interested to do, and an option for people that maybe want to find ways to increase their silver stacks. And we do have a question here from Dace. Do you know of any class action lawsuits we can report our losses to? Yeah, in fact, I don't recall the exact title, but if you scroll through, although, I mean, I guess I could do it here with you. So let us, we'll use this tab here at some weird article talking about a George Bush tribunal and a tape that Don Rumsfeld allegedly made that was allegedly discovered among his personal possessions, possibly because he wanted to make sure that, you know, he was covered in case things went bad. But we'll leave that aside and pull up the answer to the question. I don't know if anything like that could conceivably be true or even make sense in today's hyperinflationary world, especially with the connections between gold and silver rigging, gold and silver that went missing September 11th, and Donald Rumsfeld, who lost $2.3 trillion on September 10th, the day before those Black Eagle Trust Fund bonds would have come due. But anyway, class action. What was the name of that video we did? There are a couple of videos we did where I updated. There you go. Silver manipulation class action update. So I would start there. There are cases going on. I have one friend who is involved in one, and I've seen many, and I believe this is the one it's documented in, where I also, yes, I posted all the links too. You're going to love this. Okay. Here's how you contact CFTC's Oversight Committee. Here's how you make a Freedom of Information Request Act. Here's some of the trading records I would ask for. Let's see. To read the article about David Caron's class action suit. So here's one. You can click on that. Get more information about Goldfix settlement. You can click on that. This book, Jeffrey Williams, I'm reading that right now, Manipulation on Trial. When you hear, I mean, if you think things are foolish and rigged now, even the lawyers liked, I mean, it was a clusterfuck, shall we say. So you can read about that there. Here's Daniel Shack. I talked about him plenty of times. they got a settlement out of JP Morgan, so you can read about that. And also, let's see, do we have the link for we have a group, legal group. If you send an email to the contact at Arcadia Economics, there is a group where I update, I've been compiling my evidence and tracking down. Well, I want to track down this guy, David Covell, who basically appears in a lot of these suits. Looks like he's busted up the CFTC a couple of times. So I've been compiling my evidence, which actually we can show that as well. I know you've seen that several times, but is that Arcadia Economics / CFTC complaint. And we have this legal list where, we've had a couple discussions. There's some lawyers in there, other people who are willing to help or have time. So we've been looking at options. Here's the page where I've compiled some of our evidence. This is only a fraction of it, but here's how to contact CFTC's oversight. Here's a letter I wrote to Maxine Waters. Send that to her. Here's how you can call them, make sure they've received it. Here's the email. So I have my legal file here. Again, we have a legal list. So if you write in and would like updates, on what we're doing specifically, or if you have suggestions or would like to talk with other people who are in a similar position, just write an email. If you go to, where is this? The contact tab on Arcadia Economics in the upper right, and send an email, just say, I would like to be added to the legal list. We also have an options list for options related material, which I'm really excited. We are going to do more with that this year. There's also a volunteer list. If you have time and you're frustrated by the manipulation, maybe just organizing, because we have a lot of people who want to help. And I have tons of stuff that I believe really can make an even further impact in what we're doing. But just there's only so many hours in the day. So, okay, there we go. Contact at Arcadia Economics. You can send it in there. So if you'd like to be added to any of those lists and get more involved, that's how you can do that. Again, really an easy way to support what we're doing is just hitting the share button, whether that's on Twitter or Facebook or any platform that you like to use. I guess I'm a little biased here, but obviously I think this affects everybody, which is why I do what I do, which has not always been easy. And, it's like, I understand sometimes I'm a little cranky or go off on tangents, but I guess hopefully today's video helped point out there's all these things going on behind the scenes, and then trying to, I have my own emotions where I see the stuff going on with COVID. My mom has gotten the vaccine. When I heard about the issues many people are having with blood clotting as they get in higher altitudes, she wanted to come visit me in Mexico, and I haven't been able to see her because, from what I've heard, I don't know how safe that is. And there's a lot of things where, speaking to a lot of people and understand, some people have taken vaccines, some people won't take the vaccine, and and not that, I mean, that's part of, I guess, doing something public where you're speaking to many people and trying to get across the necessary information in a way that still is respectful and kind. And certainly I'm not perfect yet. At least I think the thing that has gone really well here is that whatever I say is genuinely what I believe and with a genuine intention to help people. And so hopefully that comes through. What was Building 7 hiding, says Ringo Dog. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to wrap up here. I know I said that before, but since we're having fun, and wow, this is really nice doing the live stuff again. It's got how much I missed that. But since we are here, for any World Trade Center related questions, I actually had a lot of thoughts coming to me last night, which I posted on Twitter because it was all of a sudden just seeing how certain things might be connected. Oh, actually, I am going to show you one. I know we'll save that for a separate video. We will show you this one. So that article you may have seen before about George Bush, would this explain that 2.3 trillion that Don Rumsfeld lost or stole, never even really bothered to look for? You can click on that article. Here's Rumsfeld on September 10th saying they lost 2.3 trillion. Now, he did tell the truth about one thing. He said the real enemy of America is bureaucracy, so the government, and I would agree. Here's an interesting picture I'll leave you to read. Here is some smoking gun evidence. Here's investigators' shocking claim that gold vault contents were empty before the attack. They knew it was coming. Here is a CNN video clip about it. Here is another news link. Here's actually a stunningly interesting comment from Jeff Christian about how Bush and Cheney reneged on the IMF. That one's worth listening to. And there's some comments that are surprised. There's a whole range of comments. I don't even know what's popped up since then. But if you'd like to see that, that's my pinned tweet for now. So if you go to you go up there to the pinned tweet if you'd like to get any of those links. You can also come on Twitter and retweet and reshare these things, which I would say if you're invested in gold and silver and you're disgusted, absolutely disgusted by the actions of the US government and regulators that, having lived in multiple countries around the globe, I see everyone's looking back to the US. And usually it's just that people don't know any of these things that are actually going on or happening, or sometimes it's just that they're so shocking to believe. So just, I know I don't want to ask anything from anyone, but that the degree that, if you share these things, if you retweet it, if you share the YouTube links, that's why I put it out there. I think if everybody knew this, then the thing would have ended already. And there's a note from Yara Vinay in the chat. She actually flew to Mexico and back out of Mexico without getting a vaccine, without doing the PCR brain poker that I've heard is not so nice on your pineal gland. She got a cheek swab, which she felt a lot more safe with, and she is very anti-vax, so sensitive to these issues. I also ran into Josh Segerson from World Alternative Media last week, great channel that he has, and he said he's flown to 17 different countries without a vaccine or taking the PCR test. I thought that was interesting because, as is often the case, there's always loopholes in these things, so they don't have to do the things they're trying to jam on everybody else. So anyway, there you go. Let's take a final look at the silver price. I've been buying call options. I will be doing that as I wrap up here today. That's not in any way legal financial advice, just sharing. Now, it's not saying it's going to happen tomorrow or next week, but I don't know. Will they get silver below 20 bucks? Geez, you would think maybe if they were going, I mean, I'm sure they would like to do that. You would think if they could do that, they would have done it by now. But rather what I see happening is that you see silver basically, pull up the Friday chart. I mean, it basically moves up and down in the same range over and over again, devoid of any fundamentals aside from the COT chart. So here, there, people get stopped out. Here, they probably buy after it goes high so they can get stopped out. When you have today's thing, Jeff Curry told you what they were doing. Jeff Christian tells you what they're doing. I mean, he lies most of it, but he sneaks. I mean, you can't, hide that 2 + 2 = 4. So that strikes me really as a big grab, and whether, we're seeing really wouldn't call it a run on the COMEX yet. I mean, I guess it could be. It will, if we're at 0 next week, then I guess it'll be a run. Maybe it goes back up, or there's a lot that's unseen beneath the surface. So certainly seems like things are escalating, certainly feels that way in a variety of different ways. And hopefully you guys all have a great day out there. Thank you to Arcana for bringing us today's video. Sure appreciate that. And also for being accountable to your shareholders and asking and answering the questions. So with that said, batteries on 1%. Going to wrap up for now. Happy New Year, everyone. I have a feeling it's going to be a good one for the silver investors out there. And with that said, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and I will see you again tomorrow.